Adam, thank you very much, and welcome once again, everyone, to NASCAR Race Hub, presented by K&N. NASCAR has gone west, the clouds have moved in, and business is starting to pick up as this racetrack out in Sin City is starting to get fast. Cooler temperatures mean more horsepower, and we have qualifying coming up shortly. Welcome into our Race Hub studio, everybody. I'm John Roberts alongside of Wally Dallenbach and Casey Mears. Now, it's about 3:30 this afternoon Eastern time that we had the last Cup Series practice. That's a while ago. Yeah. So what did the drivers do? Where'd they go? Yeah, I mean, initially, obviously debrief with your crew, get the last minute, changes you want on your car. Also, maybe look at Dartfish, look at other people's various lines, who was fast, where'd they go, that type of deal, and then try to apply that to how you want to approach it. And then start thinking about what are the changes going to be. What do you need to do differently for qualifying, because it is such a different time. It looks like things are probably going to cool off for qualifying. So how do you adjust for that? What do you do as a driver to get more out of it, but not overdrive it either? So that's what Casey does. What does Wally do during a 3-hour break in Vegas?
I'm looking for food. looking for something.
Priorities.
Yeah. But no, as Casey pointed out, I was just looking at the screen there, and it is cloudy. So, and I think one of the biggest problems that drivers make on the qualifying lap is getting greedy. You know, in your mind, it's like, okay, it's cloudy. The track's going to be a little bit cooler. I think there's going to be more grip. And we always try to get a little bit more, and we usually screw it up and ruins the qualifying lap. But being track temperature sensitive at this racetrack, I think we're going to see the speeds pick up a little bit for qualifying. Yeah, so what we know so far is who was fast in that first practice session today. Let's take a look at who those drivers were. And a guy who won at Vegas not too long ago, Wally, was Matt Kenseth. Yeah, Matt Kenseth putting some numbers up, and Matt runs good at this place, so that's not a big surprise to me. And just by the way, today was Matt's birthday, or is Matt's birthday, as they still have a lot of time left out there. And Casey, how about Kyle Larson?
Man, he's been on a roll in these 1.5 miles. He's been real fast till into last year. Obviously, was real fast at Atlanta. Looking good again here at Las Vegas.
And Las Vegas seems to be the personal playground at times for this driver, Wally.
Yeah, 4-time winner at this racetrack. So, again, there's no surprise Jimmy Johnson's up at the top of the charts running around this place. And when he runs this good this early in the weekend, he's going to be a threat Sunday.
He was obviously in race setup early and then did the qualifying lap. Brad Keselowski was our most recent winner here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the most recent history with 2 wins in the last 3 races, and very fast again. He sounded very confident in his interviews, and they're looking to have a good day.
And Martin Truex Jr. should really come as no surprise. He was the fastest on top of the speed chart. He runs well on the 1.5 miles, as does Matt Kenseth. Then you see Casey Kane. And back a little ways is Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, and Denny Hamlin. Right now, let's go live in to the Neon Garage and check in with Caitlin Vincey. Caitlin, how's it going out there?
John, it's going well. You can see the cars rolling by behind me, getting set for this qualifying session in just a bit. Let's go back to that first practice of the day. Martin Truex Jr., he topped the board, checked in with that team. They stayed in qualifying trim the whole time. Martin overall very happy with that race car. His best finish here was second in 2015. Ryan Blaney, he turned 17 laps in that first practice, did both race and qualifying trim. So let's hear from both those guys, some of their thoughts after that first session.
It felt good. Guys did a good job on our Bass Pro Toyota, and excited to be out here in Vegas. We've had a decent start to the season, but definitely excited about the speed we've shown today, and hopefully we can back it up in qualifying.
We're going to be in good shape. I think, the groove's going to move up and down. We've seen that a couple times here, and you're going to have to hit a perfect lap like always here. It's going to be a really fast lap, though.
I don't think we ever got it quite right. I don't think I ever got, a great lap, so I'm hoping that's a good sign. I hope we make the car better and I can do a better job. We just been a little bit off. We just worked on qualifying the whole time, so our speeds looked high the whole time. But we just gotta get a little bit better here to qualify.
It went all right. Definitely better than last week. I think we're in a better spot than we were. We fired off in race trim, switched over to Q trim, and got 2 good runs. And the first run was good. I thought I could get a little bit more on the second run, and just got too free into one to make any more lap time. So we'll go back, adjust on it.
I thought once we swapped over to qualifying trim, I thought we had speed the whole time. And our last run, I thought, was fairly strong. So I think we got a good car. We definitely have some good notes to build on. I think our car overall has speed right now. It's just trying to find that little bit more to be a little bit higher up there when it comes to qualifying time.
And Ryan Blaney looking for his very first win here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but he had a special guest with him, joining him in the garage area following that first practice session. Actor Adam Sandler was hanging out with him. Apparently, Ryan Blaney and several other drivers are helping Adam promote a Netflix original he has coming out later in the year. So some celebrities on hand here in the garage at Las Vegas. John?
Yeah, Caitlin, whether it's Adam Sandler or Adam Alexander, the stars are out in Vegas. So, guys, what kind of changes do we expect now in speeds from the practice session to the qualifying session? Do you expect anybody can really make some gains?
Well, I don't know that you're going to see a huge pickup from practice, but looking at the overcast skies, that definitely could be the biggest variable. Typically you'd be seeing some sun going into turn 1, maybe get some shade in 1 and 2 and have sun on the track in 3. But looking at those pictures, it looks like, the whole track's going to have some shade, which would make that more consistent.
Yeah, it makes it even for everybody. But yeah, I agree. I think when you look at a driver's going to look at that, and that's what he wants to see. I'd rather see a cool track or overcast for the whole qualifying session than working with shade on one end of the racetrack and sun on the other.
You know what a lot of fans want to see? I want to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. run real well. That's what they're looking for. As we take a look at the cars getting staged and ready for qualifying, the 88 car being piloted by Dale Earnhardt Jr. Not off to quite the start he wanted so far, but that could change in a hurry at Vegas. Now, it's been a strong start to the season for Ford, with Kurt Busch winning the Daytona 500 and Brad Keselowski winning last week in Atlanta. We will hear from both those drivers coming up next on The Hub.
I think this might be Kurt Busch's day. Looks like he's going to come home a winner.
Kurt Busch for Gene Haas and Tony Stewart wins the Daytona 500.
Wow. What an incredible comeback from the two. Brad Keselowski.
For Roger Penske and Ford, Brad Keselowski wins the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
Now, when you look at the points so far this season for the Monster Energy Series, you see stage racing in action. Kevin Harvick has yet to win, but with his stage victories, he finds himself on top of the points. The next two drivers are those who have won so far this season, Kurt Busch and Brad Keselowski. So let's now hear from the drivers who have visited Victory Lane.
It's like each team took care of one specific project, and the four of us have worked together in a stronger fashion than we never have before. But I tell you, Doug Yates' power, I want to say, is slightly better than where we were. It just feels that way. The aerodynamic balance of the Ford has more distribution on one region of the car than another, and it feels better. Tony Stewart being a full-time owner, Clint Boyer coming in with his ideas. We upgraded in all categories at Stewart Haas, and so it's really neat to see everything come out of the box strong.
Yeah, it's great for Ford. They're putting a lot of time and money into the sport of NASCAR, and to be rewarded is something that you always want to see when someone makes an investment. It's a big ship, and the investment was made probably a year or so prior with a lot of different things. The most visible, of course, is bringing in Stewart Haas Racing, but there's more to it than just that. We can't just take it for granted. We got to keep going, and we got to keep working and put in the efforts to go with it. So I think there's a right leadership team in place right now that really understands motorsports to continue to do so. So it's a good time to be aligned with Ford, for sure.
Hey, so there were many observers who thought that Stewart Haas Racing would take a step backwards when they switched to Fords, but Casey, Kurt Busch is saying they upgraded in every area.
Yeah, and a lot of confidence out of both of those guys, which was pretty cool to see. But to see Kurt have the confidence that he has in that program after all the changes they made in the offseason and knows where they stand, is confident that they can go get the job done, is pretty cool at this point. This early in the season, to know that they can get it done.
And when you make a change like that, you're hoping that Ford comes back with a little bit better body, that the balance is better, and Roush Yates' engines are as good as they were last year, and even better this year. So I think, if more than anything, the timing was right when they made this change, because Ford definitely stepped it up, and those guys benefited off it. And I really thought they would struggle more. After we figured Atlanta would be the big test. They proved everybody wrong that they don't have any problems making the switch.
Exactly, and we have seen in the past that there is strength in numbers when it comes to that. Right now, we're going to go check in with Caitlin, who is standing by with another one of those guys leading the Ford charge.
Thank you, John. Paul Wolf, crew chief for Brad Keselowski, joining me now. Big winners last week at Atlanta, but let's talk about the West Coast swing for a moment. What's the preparation like coming out here for your team to the West Coast?
Well, it definitely has its challenges. It's something we've done for a few years now, so it seems like every year we try to be smarter and get better with it. And basically what you end up doing is you're working a week ahead. So now we're here in Vegas. We've already prepared the Phoenix cars, and the guys won't get the opportunity to work on those when we get back. So it works well unless you have like a change you want to apply to the car, something maybe you've learned this weekend. Well, the cars are going to be gone when we get back. So sometimes it makes that a struggle, but overall I think we try to prepare pretty well at Team Penske, and they give us some good cars.
Certainly, Ford as a whole has been preparing well. A lot of good performances right out of the gate. What's your initial impression of the horsepower you guys are working with this year?
Well, it's good. You know, all the guys at Roush Yates work really hard. We had a great speed weeks. Didn't get a lot to show for, but we had fast cars every time we were on the racetrack, and didn't get the results we wanted, so we went to Atlanta. It's always an unknown of where you're going to stack up the first mile and a half of the season. It's been a weakness for us in the past, so it was nice to show the speed we had there. And so far this weekend at Vegas, we've shown to be pretty good as well.
Well, thank you for your time. Best of luck to you. Brad Keselowski won at Las Vegas last year, looking for another win this weekend, guys.
Yeah, could easily make it 2 in a row. Caitlin, thank you. When the hub rolls on, we hear from a couple of Joe Gibbs Racing drivers in Matt Kenseth and Kyle Busch. Plus, Casey Mears will take us for a lap around Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Riding Shotgun. Welcome back, everyone, to Race Hub, presented by K&N as part of Fast Friday. And the racetrack on this Fast Friday is getting faster and faster. This time last season, we found ourselves talking a lot about the Joe Gibbs Toyotas and the early season success they have been having. And that really hasn't happened so far in this early season, but we remind you once again, take a look at some of their results and the comparison. It is still very early in the season. In 2016, they had accumulated 1 win and 204 laps led with 0 DNFs for the team. This year, big difference. 0 wins, 18 laps led, and 4 DNFs. Let's hear from some of the drivers on what has gone on so far in this young season.
I mean, man, you're only 2 weeks in, and really it's hard to count Daytona. Everybody, it's so easy to get caught up in a wreck there, and like our wreck at Daytona, we don't have anything to do with that. We're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, so there's just nothing you can do about that. I don't put a lot of stock in where you leave in the point standings after Daytona. I just never have, because it doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the season. Last week, and I don't know, Denny had mechanical failure. Not sure about Kyle. I thought we ran pretty well, really, the whole day. We just had those speeding penalties.
We got to get a little bit better aero platform going, balance-wise, aero balance as well, too, through the corners, and figuring out how to do all of that through our setups in the race car. So we're trying some different things each week in order to try to get better, to find something that I like, that we can move forward with through the year. Sometimes you start slow, and you got to build up to it, and other times you're right on it right from the start. So we're just not there yet.
So when things are going well, that kind of gets magnified 2 races into the season. They say, hey, we're off to a great start. Now, when things are going poorly, as Matt Kenseth said, hey, look, man, we're 2 races into this season. We're fast. Let's not worry. Would you worry, Wiley?
I don't think I'd worry about that race team just because they're such a good race team. The only thing I look at that is those numbers is the 204 laps led to the 18 laps led. That kind of strikes me as, wow, that's a big difference in 2 races. But then again, like I said, you got to kind of throw Daytona out the window as far as I'm concerned when it comes to that. But, they're off to a slow start perhaps, but I don't think these guys are down or anybody has to worry about them. I mean, they've got a good race team. They got good race car drivers. I think they've been caught up in a lot of messes like this one with Kyle. So, no.
Yeah, they've showed speed, right? And they got some fast guys here this weekend. And then also, talking about Furniture Row and JGR, obviously that relationship, those guys were very fast as well. So there's going to be a lot of info to look at, going into the next few events. And obviously they've been strong for a long time. They're not going to be down for long, and it's only been 2 events.
Yeah, exactly. Very good organization. Let's now go to the racetrack and check in with Caitlin Vincey, who is standing by with one of the guys who is trying to right that ship.
Thank you, John. Well, Mike Wheeler, Denny Hamlin's crew chief, joining me now. First practice session in the books. Now, for 1.5 mile tracks, Atlanta is a little unique. Las Vegas, a little more traditional. What's your impression of what you've seen in the 1.5 mile program with Gibbs so far?
I feel pretty good about it. You know, we're not ultra stellar, but we're actually okay, competitive. A lot of our teammates are usually in the top 5, so that's at least something we can shoot for. Have good notes, and the cars seem pretty fast.
Now, Las Vegas recently announced they're going to have 2 dates next season. So is this put a little higher premium on this race, knowing we're going to see it a couple times in the future?
Yeah, for sure. You know, we used to like Loudon a lot, or still do like Loudon a lot. Kind of sad to see it go. This hasn't been one of our favorite tracks to come to. I like the area, but the track's always been kind of hard for Denny and our team. But saying that, yeah, we'll definitely focus on it more. Dover used to be our Achilles heel in the chase, but now this is a big chase track. We'll make sure we focus on it more.
For practice tomorrow, how critical will it be trying to get those speeding lines right on pit road, considering how many penalties we saw last week?
You know, part of that is just being disciplined. Honestly, we don't get to practice much because NASCAR won't usually give you the speeds. They're allowing it something this weekend for us to play with, but end of the day, you just got to make sure you do your math right and hopefully hit your marks.
Well, thank you for your time. Best of luck to you this weekend. Denny Hamlin looking for his first Las Vegas win this weekend. John?
Caitlin, thank you very much. And Wheels, as they call him, made a pretty good point there that this just really isn't a good track for Denny and hasn't been traditionally.
Well, that's what I took out of that interview was I don't think they're worried, but they're worried about coming to this racetrack twice because it's not a good track for them. So I think they have to step it up now that this race is in the playoffs. They have to figure this place out. Maybe, you know, you come there and go, hey, we don't really run good. We'll try to get what we can get out of it. But now I think they got to work a little bit harder.
Yeah, that will change next year in a big way as they have a playoff race there. But right now, it is time to go riding shotgun as Casey Mears is going to take us for a couple of laps around Vegas.
Yeah, so right here you see Brad coming off turn 4, going to the start-finish line. Going into turn 1 is real critical. There's a bump there. How the car loads into the corner is very critical. Bump. After you get through the bump, you start feeding the throttle. The banking continues all the way off the corner, so you can really lay into the throttle really hard. Going into 3, it's very easy to overdrive. So if you get into 3 a little too hot, the car typically wants to get loose. It's hard to get back down to the bottom. You want to get to the white line, hook it, then touch the gas, feed the throttle, and then get off the 4. Let's listen to Brad here a little bit and what he does. So rolls out of it here, gets through the bump, feels like the car's settling in, starts feeding back into the gas really hard. Again, thinking about turn 3 now. Don't overdrive turn 3. Get in there just right. Don't arc it, but don't arc it too much. Get down to the bottom, feed the throttle again, off the start-finish line.
So while it looks kind of easy, but it's not, is it?
I think your first lap was a little bit better. I think you missed your mark a little bit on the second lap.
A little bit, yeah.
But it is. It's so fine. It's such a fine line. And I mean, if you're off that line or off your mark, it feels like 2 feet or 3 feet. Boy, that shows up on the watch big time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be big time in qualifying to not miss that mark because a couple of fractions of a second could make the difference here in qualifying. That is coming up next. We will see how drivers like Clint Boyer, who will pilot this vehicle, will do on this. I'm sorry, Kevin Harvick. On this point. We'll be back in a minute. Long day. Welcome to Las Vegas, everybody. There's nothing quite like it. It's a city that's one of a kind, and the racetrack is also one of a kind. Drivers like Ryan Newman, who will pilot this car, are getting ready to qualify as we continue the countdown. Let's take a look at what's coming your way tomorrow on FS1. First of all, it's Monster Energy practice at noon, qualifying for the Xfinity Series. We'll follow that up with an edition of NASCAR Race Hub at 2 o'clock. Final practice for the Monster at 2:30, and then race coverage for Xfinity starts at 3:30. So now let's get you out to the racetrack and check in with Caitlin, who is standing by with driver Ryan Newman. Caitlin?
Yeah, Johnny's getting set for qualifying in just a bit here. I spoke with your crew chief, Luke Lambert, earlier. He said you did both race and qualifying trim. What's an area you kind of working on to find a little more speed there in that 31?
Just seems like getting through the bumps in 1 and 2 is so particular here, and such a fine balance of getting it right and carrying good speed, because you carry all that down into turn 3, and you don't lift a whole lot in 3 and 4. So the biggest thing you can get right or wrong is the bumps in turn 1.
Okay, and you've made 16 starts here. What do you think is going to be the key to getting it done in qualifying? A little cooler temps and some cloud coverage here.
I think the real big question is going to be how much rubber's on the racetrack, and I think the racetrack's going to keep getting faster the more we run on it with sticker tires. So when you go out and how you go out and all that stuff, I think will add up tonight for sure. But nevertheless, just doing the best job we possibly can with the Caterpillar Chevrolet to get on the pole. We were close last weekend and have a hopefully a similar run tonight.
Well, best of luck to you. Ryan Newman hoping to earn a pole position here in just a bit. John?
Caitlin, thank you very much. Now we've heard what Ryan Newman is looking for in terms of qualifying. What are you guys looking for in terms of qualifying tonight?
Oh, one thing I'm curious about is you had some guys that did race trim a little bit in practice and others that did just qualifying. I think the guys that just did qualifying, look for those guys to do well because they know what their cars are going to do on stickers versus scuffs versus maybe a third run on scuffs. So getting into that final round, it's pretty critical to go through all 3 of those runs in practice.
I think it's about greed. Vegas, agreed?
You got to be greedy.
How much you can, you try to get as much as you can. And based on if the car felt good in practice, you think driver mind's just like, you know what, I think I get in there a little more. I think you're going to hear guys saying, I got too greedy and I messed up. Or you're going to hear guys say, you know what, I left a little bit on the table because their car felt a little bit better than they thought it would. And they could get, a little bit more aggressive on their qualifying lap. So, it's such a fine line to get cut a good lap on one of these racetracks. Everything's got to be perfect. You hear about the bumps. You hit that bump just the wrong way. If it takes you just that little hesitation to get back on the throttle, it's 0.2 of a second on the watch.
Yeah, so we had a lot of problems last weekend with speeding on pit road. We perhaps could have a lot of problems this weekend as well, except NASCAR is letting the drivers and the teams take a look at those speeds.
And that's huge. I mean, obviously the engineers calculate exactly where that needs to be and you do your lights, but mistakes happen, right? So being able to double verify that throughout the weekend is going to be huge.
I don't know. I don't think we'll see as many because they're letting them do it. I think it just caught a lot of guys out with the extra loops and we're all greedy trying to get what you can on pit lane, but it's different now with those extra loops. I think NASCAR giving them this chance to check everything. I don't think we'll see this pit road penalties we did last week.
Yeah, and I think it gives them an idea it gives them a more concrete answer on where they're at. But at the same time, I think a lot of those speeding penalties that we saw in Atlanta were because guys were just pushing it. The segments were smaller. They didn't have time to recover, so you could see those again.
Yeah, well, we want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride on this edition of NASCAR Race Hub.
What kind of airplane is that?
Well, it's a United States Air Force airplane. How about that, Wally? Let us now go to Mike Joy for Monster Energy. NASCAR Cup Series qualifying will set the grid for Sunday.